Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's Sunday. Things just keep getting weirder and weirder, don't they? We're going to get into the new Chinese cancel culture, which to me seems like a repeat of the Russian cancellation that happened about 2 or 3 years ago. We're going to get into a bunch of other stories today as well, as China is now getting the same dose of cancel culture that Russia got, or is starting to do anyways. We're going to get also into the RFK Jr. update as he vows to cure autism or find out what's causing it over the next couple months. He says he can fix the problem. There are also more aircraft disasters, as well as details surrounding the helicopter crash that happened a couple days ago. But let's get into this. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, we go live every single day during the week at, let's see, what time do we start? 7:45 Central Time, most of the time. You probably won't get a notification for this channel. For some reason, it doesn't work on our channel. So you just got to show up to the channel and you'll see us live every morning. And most of you that come to the channel kind of make it part of your routine, which is awesome because we can stay caught up and we can see the natural progression of events and also see full circle things we talked about in the past that are now happening. Let's start with this whole Chinese cancel culture, which is, I was not expecting this, but here we go. Now understand that this is just to get everybody excited about this. This is to make it look like Trump is trying to cancel China, but secretly they want us all to look like China at some point. That's why we are competing against them with artificial intelligence and chips and everything else so that we can be like China. But the only way they can make this happen is to make it a competition, a technology arms race, we can call it. And this is how they get everybody invested in building their own prison, building their own future. But make no mistake, we will become like China. Now, I forgot to mention in the opening of the show that at the end of the show today, we're going to get into a bizarre Apprentice episode from 2005 called Motel 666. Many of you might have remembered that episode. And essentially, Trump is revealing to us that his Trump International Hotel is Motel 666. So I'll break that down at the end of the show today. So stay tuned. It's not just going to be headlines today. Now, let's jump back to this whole Chinese cancel culture, as Amazon has now canceled some inventory orders from China after the tariffs. Wow. Now, I don't know how far this will go, but remember, we've been talking about this for at least 3 or 4 years, saying that most products on Amazon's website and in Walmart are Chinese. Remember this? We had these discussions, you guys. 80% of Walmart's products and Amazon products are Chinese. And I told you this was during the first Trump term. I told you that Trump essentially helped to make China rich because the only people that were allowed to stay open during the lockdowns and all that was Amazon and Walmart, the very two companies where mostly Chinese products are sold. So out of one side of his mouth, he's saying that it's all about a trade war with China, but then secretly China got rich. So now he's going to close the loop on this, apparently, or starting to. Of course, Bezos owns Amazon, and Bezos was at the inauguration and of course is working with Trump. And I don't know if Trump asked him to cancel some of these orders or not, but Trump has to give the appearance that there is a trade war with China, even though secretly all of this is about crashing economies and them making a bunch of money off of our pain, which is the consumer, middle and lower class consumers. So things are getting weird, aren't they? Now, what else is going on? Well, Trump is pulling back Social Security numbers on illegals. Now, of course, this is a good thing, but the question is, how did they get a Social Security number in the first place? Who gave it to them? And why aren't they in jail right now? Let's try to make sense of this. Trump seeks to revoke immigrants' Social Security numbers. Trump administration aims to convince some immigrants without legal status to self-deport by adding them to a database of dead people, thus rendering their Social Security numbers inoperable. Well, how did they get a Social Security number to begin with? Let's keep reading. Immigrants who were legally admitted to the U.S. under the Biden administration but have since had their temporary status revoked. Okay, so that's what's going on. Would be added to the Social Security Administration's death master list, which is normally used to identify dead people who should no longer receive Social Security benefits. Wow. So the plot thickens, and there's the update on what's going on with Social Security and immigrants. Now, let's get into this whole RFK Jr. autism update. This is pretty shocking. He says he's going to solve autism by September of this year. Now, the question is, I wonder what they are going to say that they found. That's the first question, because we all know why autism happens. And the reason why we all know why it happens is because when you actually say why it happens, your channel gets deleted or you get a strike on your channel. So that tells you everything you need to know right there. They don't even want people having these discussions. So the second question is, if they do tell us the truth about what causes autism, then I guess trillions of dollars are going to have to be paid out in damage claims, right? Because people's entire lives have been ruined by autism, haven't they? Going back decades. We were told over and over again, oh, this is just natural. Oh, there's no cause behind this. So to me, this would be grounds to be able to sue people, right? And a lot of people would be suing because what is it now? 1 in 5 children is autistic. Wow, let's read about this and see what they're up to. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has launched a massive testing and research effort involving hundreds of scientists worldwide that will determine what caused the autism epidemic by September, says RFK Jr. But experts expressed doubt that the research would be done in good faith, given Kennedy's history of linking autism to the V word. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. Now, my guess is this is going to be a huge bait and switch. So you get everybody invested, right? Hoping that finally we're going to get some scientific proof. And then at the end of it, it'll be a big nothing sandwich, just like everything else, just like the JFK files, just like the Epstein files, just like everything else, where all this hope was built up, just like the UFO disclosure. And then nothing concrete comes through, just more questions. And this is how they keep people on the hook. This is how they keep people invested in the leadership that never gets down to the bottom of any of this stuff. So I'll put a link to this story for those that want to dig into this now. You guys, we got more plane crashes. I'm going to cover 2 of them today, in addition to the helicopter crash. Plane crashes where everybody dies for some reason. What is up with that? Here's one in Boca Raton, Florida. All 3 on board killed. Let's see what this has to say. All 3 people on board a small plane were killed when the aircraft crashed in Boca Raton Friday morning. Aircraft had apparently some mechanical issues and went down here on Military Trail. Michael LaSalle, Assistant Fire Chief for Boca Raton Rescue, said at a news conference. Also, there was a car on the ground, so there's some wreckage. Not much wreckage there, is there? Oh, look at that fire. Burns at the site of the crash. The injured driver in the car lost control and hit a tree because of all the debris in the fire. The deceased victims were identified Saturday. The 3 who died were 81-year-old Robert Stark, 54-year-old Stephen Stark, and 17-year-old Brooke Stark. Wow, whole family. Wow. So, a plane crash and a car crash. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Again. Whoa, look at that. And it was on the train tracks. Holy smokes. Trains, planes, and automobiles. That's just weird, you guys. And here's another plane crash. Killed one person in upstate New York. See if they've got any pictures of this. No pictures other than what you're looking at on your screen right now. But let's get into this helicopter crash because some new information has come to light. The pilot who crashed with the Siemens executive and his family, his identity has been revealed, and you're not going to believe this, but he was a Navy SEAL veteran. Makes you wonder what the real target was. All these important people on this helicopter, and they're all gone. Now, one of you reminded me about discussions we had about Siemens, which is the executive that was on this helicopter. And you reminded me that the show was about digital twinning and Siemens, some kind of technology. So this is weird, right? Because we looked at the ages of the children on this helicopter and they added up to 9/11, which of course is the twinning of the Twin Towers. What a weird matrix we live in, right? So this guy, Navy SEAL, he always dreamed of flying. Now, there's another aspect to this that is very weird. There's some footage out now. I don't know if I can show this to you. Here's the helicopter here. There was some footage of what exactly happened, and it looked like the thing just came apart. It looks like it literally exploded. Now, people heard sounds, and several people caught this on video because, you know, everybody's videotaping this area. It's a pretty popular area near the Statue of Liberty. And apparently it disintegrated in mid-flight and then landed top down first. Now they're trying to say the reason why this thing went down was because of some kind of phenomenon where the rotor blades cut its own tail off. And they said that this only happens from either a huge mechanical failure or extreme maneuvers done by the pilot. How about evasive maneuvers? Right? Like maybe he saw something and maybe he was trying to avoid it. Now, if you didn't know, this is the exact location we saw strange orbs flying around. I think it was late last year we did a story on strange orbs that were caught on videotape in some kind of intro that they were doing, flying around in the frame. And this is the exact same area. I don't claim to know what's going on. I don't claim to know for a fact this is a conspiracy, but I do know people are comparing the helicopters. Not to say it was the same helicopter, but this guy and his family were pictured with a completely different helicopter. So people are like, that's not even the same helicopter. So I don't know all the details, but from what I do know, it definitely does sound very suspicious, especially against the backdrop of all the other aircraft accidents that have been going on since the start of the Trump administration. Trains, planes, and automobiles. Wow. Now, let's get into some other stories today. And here we are. We are literally, you guys, being held hostage, economic hostage. And Trump will get his economy boost. How? Well, guess what? You have 87 days left to buy everything that you need because nobody knows the future after the 90-day pause of Trump's tariffs. Wow. That to me doesn't sound like a very fun economic environment, and you really can't defend that. I'm shocked they didn't even say 88 days left. That would have been a slam dunk, right? All the 88s surrounding Trump. But they're telling us 87 days to buy clothes, electronics, appliances. Here's what you need to stock up on before Trump's tariff pause ends. Now, I guess he said there was some kind of moratorium on cell phones, so to where you don't have to worry about cell phones getting hit by these tariffs or being affected by the tariffs. But wow, right? Weird. Now, what else? Did you guys catch the full moon last night? What was it called? A pink moon. I actually caught it. I've got some pictures I'm going to share with you. It didn't look very pink to me, but I did get some pictures of the full moon last night through the white oak trees and the red oak trees. It was a beautiful shot, but this is weird. Did you guys catch it? Let's go back in the chat before I show you these pictures, and then we'll get into the Apprentice Motel 666. You're not even going to believe that. Good morning, everybody. Anybody catch the full moon? Did it look pink to you, I guess is my question. Yeah, mine was white. Yeah, Cheryl doesn't live too far from me. She saw the same I did. It just looked white. It was pretty bright, but it was just white. I didn't see any pink in it whatsoever. It's weird. I was wondering to myself, how do they even know how do they know what a color of a moon will be? Like, how does that happen? That's a little bit weird when you really think about it. Like, how would you know to be able to predict the color of the moon? But apparently it's a thing. Some kind of scientific explanation for it. Ben says it looked like a hologram. Vic says it looked regular to me. Yeah, it just looked like a regular full moon. Well, let's take a look at these pictures I got for you guys. That's through the oak trees. And there's a huge chemtrail going beneath it. You know, they always choose full moons to do their chemtrails, right? So there's a big chemtrail going through there. Here's a wide shot. This is right off my porch here. And that's my neighbor in the background. I think he's got his lights on. Let's see what's glowing. Oh, that's his boat. He's got a boat, and it was reflecting off of the boat there. So, beautiful shot, though. All right, you guys, what else is going on? Oh, let's get into this next story. California schools are now defying Trump's DEI order. Now, we knew this was going to happen. I told you that the states we'd be caught up in courts and appeals and states suing Trump for a lot of these executive orders, and that they would defy him at every turn. You guys, we saw this during the pandemic, didn't we? States were resisting, what Trump was saying. And even with his executive orders, he couldn't force them to do certain things. And here we are with DEI. Let's read this one because this is important. California on Friday defied a Trump administration order to certify that the state's 1,000 school districts have ended all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, despite federal threats to cut billions of dollars in education funding if the state does not comply. So Trump is using the stick here, and he's threatening to cut off their funding, which I believe that's a good strategy. I will give him credit where credit is due, and that's how you try to end these kinds of programs that are basically brainwashing our children into thinking that there is a life path that is, how do I put this? That is normal, right? And that, you're not going to have any problems if you choose this or choose that. And I just don't believe that that should be in the discussion for children. I think that anything a child is taught in school should be fundamental values, okay? Basic values. We shouldn't put politics in school. It should all be basic values and basic biology and science, right? If they want to go by science, tells us that there is a baseline of biology when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't even think children should be talked about this, sex education in school at any age. That should be left to the parents. Parents should be the ones to sit down and talk to their children about these kinds of things, especially when they haven't even come into puberty yet. Okay, because they don't know. I read an article somewhere, and they said that the tomboy girl is now extinct. In other words, there are millions and millions of women who grew up tomboys, right? And they ended up being heterosexual with children and everything else. Well, now, of course, that's not a thing. If you're a tomboy, you basically fall into the LGBTQ category. So imagine all of those women who could have ended up with normal families, a husband, and grown out of that stage. Because remember, the whole tomboy thing happens when you haven't even reached puberty yet and the hormones have not developed. So they've basically interrupted that process and go, oh, you must be a this. You see the problem here? And so here we are. Now, how many of you grew up tomboys when you were younger who turned out to be normal, heterosexual women without any tendencies to want to go to the other side? I just want to get an idea of what's out there, because this would prove my point. Rebecca said I was a tomboy. See? So there you go. You know, they don't ever consider, these people, all of the different things that could happen. What if a child's born and is like angry at you because they were conceived through IVF and they don't have like a real father, or they don't know who their father is? For someone to choose that for their child, to me, is not good. It's just not good, you guys. You're putting a child in a very precarious position, right? You guys, it's bad enough. Even in normal nuclear families, children are being born asking, why did you give birth to me? So imagine now you throw all this other stuff in the mix, and it's going to create an entire generation of lost children, in my opinion. So it looks like most of you grew up tomboys and you turned out to be perfectly normal heterosexual women. Now imagine you were born in 2012 or 2020 and you ended up, now what would your identity be in today's atmosphere? It would be completely different. You would probably fall into the other category and not even know that you did, because of outside influences all around us and all this DEI stuff. Now let's go back into this article. Thanks for sharing, you guys, because it really matters. It helps other people understand, because here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, oh, you were supposed to be LGBTQ. You just didn't know it. You succumbed to social pressure. Well, by you giving your testimony that you have no tendencies toward the other direction, that helps people understand that that theory is hogwash. It's just not true. And you totally can and grow out of that, and most people do. Okay? So let's keep reading here. The U.S. Department of Education has given states until April 24th to collect certifications from every school district in the nation, confirming that all DEI efforts have been eliminated. In the letter, school district superintendents Friday, the California Department of Education defended the legality of DEI efforts. So here we go. So they're going to fight it in court. There's nothing in state or federal law that outlaws the broad concept of diversity, equity, or inclusion, wrote Chief Deputy Superintendent David Shapira. So we're going to see how all this shakes out. But essentially, it could be a big nothing sandwich for California and DEI. They could just keep going right along as planned, and all this depends on what the courts say about the legality of Trump's order. Wow. Now, let's finish up the show today with some craziness. I couldn't even believe this. Now, one of you sent this to me. I didn't go searching for this. One of you sent this to me. This is The Apprentice, January 27th, 2005. It was the second episode of the third season. Remember, when you divide 2 by 3, it's 0.6666666 to infinity. And what was the name of the episode? It was called Motel 666. Now, what's crazy about this whole episode? You're not even going to believe this. Here's a screenshot. Now, Trump's Apprentice show is highly copyright protected, and probably for good reason, right? These people, they show us stuff, and then all of a sudden, people wake up to it, and then what do? They go hide in the shadows. So I can't play you clips of this. I'm just going to show you screenshots, but I'm going to tell you in detail what this episode was about. It's literally called Motel 666. Now, the first thing that happens in the episode, there are two teams. And guess who wins? There's one team called Net Worth and the other team called Manga. Manga, like MAGA. You guys, this was 2005. 11 years before MAGA would be spoken by Trump. Yet, here it appears in this episode. Now, Manga wins the competition in this episode, but let me tell you what the competition was. Trump opens the episode by telling both teams to show up to Trump International Hotel. Now listen very, very closely. He then explains that Trump International Hotel was essentially raised from the dead and that he went in and redid the hotel and made it what it is today. And of course, this is the hotel at Columbus Circle with a giant globe in front of it, the replica of the World's Fair globe from Corona Park. He then tells the candidates that they'll be given the same opportunity to refurbish their own beachside hotels in New Jersey. And he's going to give them a budget of $20,000 each to do so. But essentially, what he was saying here is that his own hotel was Hotel 666. Now, how can we say this? Well, I'm going to show you right now. How can I say Trump International Hotel is Hotel 666? Well, let's start with Trump's other buildings that have been the setting for some very demonic and dark movies, literally filmed in these buildings: The Dark Knight Rises and The Devil's Advocate. Both were filmed in Trump buildings. In fact, The Devil's Advocate was filmed on Trump's 66th floor penthouse. And Trump's flagship New York buildings are almost always black or dark in color. They're not like the typical landscape when it comes to New York skyline. His buildings stand out as dark or black. Now, still at this point, you can't make the case that Trump International Hotel is 666. Well, until I give you this extra bit of information. The top floor is 555 feet tall. And of course, we all know that 555 feet is 6,660 inches. Now, how do we know this? Because our own Washington Monument is 555 feet tall. And for many, many decades, people have noticed that that equals 6,660 inches. Another 666. Now, I dug a little bit deeper. Now, I found all this morning. I didn't have to dig very far. Okay. Here is a floor plan from the Trump International Hotel, and you can almost make out the number 66, both right side up, but reversed, and upside down in the right direction. Can you see the numbers 66 in the floor plan? Now, I didn't do anything to this image yet, but I'm going to outline the 66s for you so you can see them, so that you know I'm not making any of this up. Let's try to do this. Let's get a tool here. Here we go. We're going to use red. Okay, so here we go. Here's 166. Right here. Here's the other 6. And then here they are upside down. Sorry about my drawing, but I'm doing this with the mouse. And here's the other one. 66 above and below confirmed. Now, remember again that this hotel was the site, or is the site of a giant globe, a world globe sitting in front and was fashioned after the Unisphere and Perisphere globes of the World's Fair Corona Park, Flushing Meadows. Now, during this era, everybody in the world was watching Trump's Apprentice show. It was very, very popular. And when I look back at this, now I never watched any of this. What was I doing in 2005? 2005, I think I was living in California. It was just before my first divorce. And yeah, I was going through a divorce. I wasn't really watching TV shows back then. So, but everybody else was watching this. The Apprentice, The Apprentice. I remember my friends all talking about this. And I'm like, what is that? I don't even like that guy. Who is Trump? And he's the richest man in the world almost, or whatever. And I was just like, I'm not watching that. I just wasn't into these like reality TV shows. This was during the era of reality TV. Remember this? All these TV shows, and I just got sick of them. I think when some of these TV shows first came out, I did start to watch them, but then all of TV became these reality TV shows, which everybody realized were essentially fake. They were just scripted with actors, weren't even real people. And so it just got really cringy, and that's probably why I didn't watch this show. But check this out, you guys. When I watched this back, it was even more cringe because essentially Trump was walking around like this guy who had the world in his hands. And if you wanted just a little piece of Trump, you could be rich like him. The whole show, the whole premise of the whole show was people hoping to be the next apprentice so that they could run one of Trump's companies. Now, at a certain point in the episode, one of the teams has to buy beds for their motel, and the beds cost $2,300. There's another 2 divided by 3 equals 666 connection, pairing with the other season 3, episode 2, 666 connection. Now, at some point, this is actually pretty funny. One of the teams essentially hires a bunch of illegals to paint the hotels. This is hilarious. Now, this guy, here's a screenshot from, and they're outside one of the 666 hotels. And this guy doesn't even speak English. He's clearly an illegal immigrant. And think of the irony of that on Trump's TV show. This is probably why it's very hard to find episodes of The Apprentice online. Wow. So, of course, Team Manga wins, which is probably a harbinger for his future MAGA campaign. The two teams were basically college team pitted against a high school team. And Manga was the college team, and they finally got retribution for losing the last episode. Now, at one point, after Manga wins, their reward is that they get to ride on a yacht. Steve Forbes' yacht, to be exact. And guess what the name of the yacht is? You ready for this? It's called the Highlander. Now, I looked into this yacht, and apparently it's been handed down from to Steve Forbes when he was like in his 40s from his father. And the entire family has Scottish roots, which of course aligns with Trump's Scottish roots as well. And at that point, the episode pretty much ends. But it's crazy. Here we are 20 years later, and everybody's getting fired, just like on the TV show. Now, Trump's firings aren't just affecting government jobs. It's actually sent a shockwave through the private sector as well. Layoffs spiked by 205% last month to the third highest ever recorded. And it's all being fueled by the Doge mass firings. So the private sector is reacting and responding to the firings by firing all of them as well. Now, many of you have probably seen this on TikTok. I don't get on to TikTok hardly at all. But for those of you that do get on TikTok, there's a bunch of people, upset that they've been fired from their private jobs. And so they're all sharing their stories. And so The Apprentice is happening now. It was almost like he already knew he was going to fire everybody. What a strange matrix we live in, you guys. Okay, so I'm back in the chat. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys today. Good morning. We can hang out in the chat for a little bit. Yes, the helicopter crash was he was one of the top executives of Siemens. Yeah, we covered that earlier in the show today. Oh, my goodness. Well, Murphy B. Ninja says, will there be mass arrests soon? I really hope so, because if there aren't, then all this was for nothing. Right? Now, Elon Musk did float that idea. He said there would be an arrest, like one arrest, but that never happened. And there doesn't need to be just one arrest. There needs to be hundreds of arrests, even thousands. These people need to go to jail if all this fraud that they're claiming is happening is really happening. Wouldn't that be the next logical conclusion? So, all right. They're supposed to be the trustees managing the public trust, but they're in breach of trust and stolen all the assets. Okay. Did I see the Hilo numbers equal Obama? Oh, wow. That's interesting. Basic income is coming soon. I believe it is too, William. All right. No justice in this world. Hey, have you guys seen Days of Noah upload lately? I have not seen an upload from him in like a month. I hope everything's okay over there. Yes, where are the prosecuted? Says Gracia. Now, once they get everyone on some kind of monthly support, that will be the beginning of the end, because in order to get that monthly support at some point, they will essentially make you take a mark. I believe that's coming soon. They're already going on and on about this real ID. Apparently, in just next month, if you don't have a real ID or a passport, you can't fly domestically. That's what's coming next. Now, understand the real ID is a national ID. The last time this happened was in Yahtzee, Germany. You can't make people have a national ID, but yet we've done that in America. Days has been doing a monthly schedule. Thank you for that. So he's on 1 month, off another. It's a great strategy. All right. Making a video with spiritual logic for truth soon. Yes, when you accept the benefits, you agree to the terms of the contract, even though it's our money, right? It's supposed to be our money. It's like with Social Security. That's our money. So they can't make rules about how you get that, how you spend it. Alyssa uses a passport, opts out of facial recognition. Yeah, I have a passport, and that's what I've used. That's how I've gotten around Real ID. I don't really fly anymore, but if I had to, I could. But understand that the passport, essentially, they're still taking a detail. Well, actually, you take the photo. You can take your own passport photo. So yeah, that's not typically taken with a Real ID camera. That's the whole key to all this. It's all about getting a high resolution, special specification picture of your face. That's what they use as the baseline to plug your face into the national database of faces so they can search you through cameras. That's what you're trying to avoid here. Now, there's going to come a certain point where through attrition, all these cameras have been converted over to high resolution cameras and there won't be any escape from it. But at this point, you still do have an option. Now, if you're going to take a passport photo, when you, like, some people take it at Costco, there's different, you can actually take it yourself if you do it the right way. So you'd want to ask them, is this camera that they're taking a picture of my face with, is this going to go into a Real ID database? Or is this a camera that has special high resolution specifications similar to a camera that they would take for a Real ID? And you might be shocked. You could ask the question and they'd be like, yeah, this is the same camera. And then at that point, there's just no way out. I mean, I don't think anyone expects people not to be able to travel, not to be able to get on a plane. But this is exactly what the Bible was saying when it says shall cause all, because most people, I believe, aren't going to have a choice. We could try, we can fight. I mean, unless you just give up your rights to travel. I'm at the point where I'm willing to do that, but a lot of people aren't or can't. So wild. When they get my pick, it will break the system. Now, other things you could do, you could try to do, but see, they've got rules now. Like you can't put your hair in front of your face. You can't. I don't even know. Some cameras they might not even allow you to wear facial, hair or something like a beard or a mustache, because you would think that there might be ways around it to kind of obscure your face. But I'm sure that they're slowly, tying up all the loopholes on that. They want your face. They want to be able to identify you. And that's creepy. Why does a government need to identify us so badly? Especially law abiding citizens. Yes, if you've done something wrong, yeah, take a mugshot of somebody. If you've done something wrong, if you're a felon, maybe you give up your rights because for the safety of everyone else, right? But not law abiding citizens. Oh, Cheryl says you had to take your glasses off too. So see, that's the clue. That means that they want facial recognition. That's where it's all headed. Iris scan is next, says Sister G. Probably. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and pop off of here. I'm glad that you guys are all here, and I will see you guys next time around. Much love, everybody. Take care.